not the way you want to kick off your second half of the season, but unfortunately for the New York Metropolitans, they falter in game one of a 3-game set. They're in Miami as they lose to the Miami Marlins by a final score of 6-4. How you doing, everybody? All you amazing Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of, first chiming into the latest Metropolitan post-game segment here on the #1 platform for all things Mets, all in-season and off-season long, not directly affiliated with the team or SNY themselves. We have here our WardyNYM post-game segment, and we're going to break down everything that transpired inning by inning in this 6-4 deficit here. Ultimate loss for the Metsies as Jeff McNeil was Jeff McBombs galore. Left, right, and center is what it felt like for McNeil, the flying squirrel today. And while the Mets got offense, which really came out as surprise and has been the case for McNeil lately, as he was starting to heat up a little bit heading into the All-Star break, staying hot now in his first game after the All-Star break, but can't say the same about all those key bops in that Mets lineup. The Mets went down today with runners in scoring position, just scored 1 run out of at least 7, 8, or 9 plus opportunities somewhere in that mix. We're going to deep dive the numbers, everything that entailed from today's deficit, and ultimately how the Mets shape up heading into game 2 of this series tomorrow. And now the Mets, out of 7 matchups against the depleted Miami Marlins this season, have lost 4 out of the 7 games. That is inexcusable. I don't care that we just started the second half of the season. Any loss against the Miami Marlins is never a good one, and that was certainly the case here tonight as the Metsies dropped this one by a final score of 6-2. To everybody first chiming in live on a replay, happy to have you all in here. Thank you all so much for the love and the support as always, everybody. Like I said, we are going to get into all the key takeaways with all the key highlights as we have for you guys right there. Jeff McNeil was Jeff McWhat all day long on the offensive, defensive end, everything in between, and I have been a heavy critic of Jeff McNeil all season long, guys. You know that very well, but McNeil now getting more consistent reps in the outfield with Starling Marte being on the shelf, and which we have some key updates on Starling Marte, Kodai Senga, and many others, including some guys in the farm like Drew Gilbert and Shintaro Fujinami. But reeling back in here for a second, McNeil's ability to command right field has been superior, and the defense was absolutely tremendous today. A masterclass outing by the Mets second baseman slash outfielder, whether you love her or hate him. But outside of that, the Mets had absolutely nothing to show for today, so we're going to get into their continued lack of ability to hit with runners in scoring position when they kind of get in these little funks with some of their heart guys in the heart of the order, rather, in JD Martinez and Pete Alonso. What is the biggest takeaways from their outing today as well? As you guys can see, we're going to get into a bit on the pitching end. What stood out about Sean Manaea having a less than ideal outing, going 5 over 5, one of his worst outings of the season, that being Manaea. On the hitting end, we're going to break down everything that I just broke down to you just now, but we'll get into it more in depth on the numbers. And shout out to our amazing sponsors, as always, at SoRare MLB and BetUS. Check them both out by clicking the link down below in the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus off not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposit. That's for all your sports betting needs at BetUS. And with SoRare MLB, sign up today, draft your team, and enter your weekly tournaments for the best MLB fantasy game out there. Thank you all so much in advance for doing that, folks. But let's get into it. Let's break down what was the key takeaways. And again, this was a frustrating game for us Mets fans. Certainly not the way that you want to kick off the second half. You're getting some awesome contributions from guys the bottom of the lineup like McNeil today. Not something that we can really bang on consistently, especially with the power. But Sean Manaea put the Mets in an early hole on the offensive end. And speaking of the offensive end, the runners in scoring position, they were just simply non-existent for this Mets team with their lack of ability to find themselves actually scoring said runners. Greg, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Greg in the chat says, not happy we lost, but let's refrain from panic until the Marlins sweep us. I don't think anyone's panicking here. The Mets are 2 games above 500 right now. We're still very much in the thick of things in the wild card position. Are going to be buying and selling plenty leading up to the traded line, if not the traded line itself. Yeah, I mean, the only way you're overly freaking out about this loss is if you are a Mets fan that takes every game to heart, no matter the outcome, but especially the outcome, 1. But 2, also, how did the Mets look on a consistent basis, right? This is not a Mets team that I'm like saying, oh no, they're free falling right now. It's their first loss in their first game to kick off a second half this season. These things are going to happen, unfortunately. Again, not an ideal one. Not happy about the results, but ultimately, we're going to get into everything that transpired in said matchup. We got Sanders in the chat says, trade Manaea. Yeah, look, we'll talk about Sean Manaea the same way we will talk about it after we break down the ball game, innings 1 through 9. We'll pivot into breaking down a bit more on the pitching end, on the offensive end. Then we will kind of transition into a bit more on the trade talk, because I think every single stream now we do up until the trade deadline is here, we're going to have some form of trade conversation, especially if the starter that could be dealt by the deadline for the Mets doesn't have a good outing, or maybe does have a good outing. That's going to warrant the discussions a bit more. So we'll talk about Sean. I'll give you the pros and the cons of potentially dealing him or keeping him in-house post-trade deadline and everything that entails in between everybody. And then we'll wrap up the show as we have been typically doing with our post-game shows as of late, which is by getting into our nightly Mets prospect report. We will get into all the key highlights, and I have some big updates for you all for Ryan Clifford, Drew Gilbert, among others there on the prospect end. So we're going to get into all that here shortly, everybody. Shout out to everybody for shopping in. Dave, great member. How are you, my man? Happy to have you as always. Senga is not Scott. We're going to get into a bit on Senga here in a second. Daniel, great member as well. Steven, great member. I was expecting a rant by you, Wardy. Yeah, no rant for me today. I got to be frank. There's no point in why should I go out of my way and be overly hot-headed and ranty today. It's the first game after an all-star break. Am I happy about today's deficit and loss? No, of course I'm not. No one's happy about this kind of outing by the Metsies today, but you move on. And there were some positives to take out of it. Not many. It's mainly Jeff McNeil and Danilo Nunez being the absolute bulldog that he is in this bullpen. Phil Maton getting himself out of a little bit of a jam. So some positives on the pitching end, bullpen-wise in particular. On the offensive end, not too much, but again, we're going to get into all that. But I do want to make sure we're live here on Twitter, everybody. So to all my live viewers on Twitter, thank you all so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like, that subscribe button, and that retweet button. But please know I will only be interacting with our live viewers here in the YouTube channel as we typically do. So make sure you hop over to YouTube if you haven't already. Smash those buttons. Thank you all so much in advance. I hope everyone also had a fantastic All-Star break, right? I'm not one of those people that takes a lot of pride and pleasure in multiple days off for the Mets. I mean, maybe a little bit now just because I'm a newly crowned father over the past month or so. My every single day is hectic for me, and there isn't nearly as much time on my side as I would like now. So it's a little different for me. However, even having said that, it feels wrong, and I feel lost not covering the Mets after a day or two. So to go the entire stretch as we did since the last time the Mets played a ball game, that felt like forever. I'm happy to be back talking ball with all you amazing Mets fans, and we're going to break down this ball game together, get into our reactions and everything in between, and we will be doing exactly that over the weekend. Tomorrow's show might not be live directly after the conclusion of tomorrow's win or loss and ultimately series defeat then, but be on the lookout. We will be live tomorrow evening, more towards night at some point, and same applies on Sunday. Not certain if we'll be live right after the game, but we will cover every single game throughout the season as we typically do here on WardyNYM. And a couple final things before I get into the key updates for you all and then breaking down this ball game. Just some donations to further emphasize here, and thank you so much for the kind words, PA. I appreciate that in the chat. Billy Dottie says, with the $10 holla, I just don't understand the obsession with Pete Alonso. Clearly a player in decline in the last 2 years when the shift rules change. Pull the plug, Stearns. Look, Pete Alonso is a guy that clearly is not going to be traded by the deadline. However, his future staying in Queens is all but certain once we hit the offseason, and that'll be a big discussion, hot debate that we will see Song go back and forth with plenty, I'm sure, all offseason long. Billy, thank you for that donation. Do I want Pete to go? No, but do I think that everyone has a price at the end of the day to a degree? Yes, I do. And we'll deep dive that further when it's warranted towards the end of the season, heading into not postseason, but rather offseason once the Mets are finally there. Scott Greenwald with the $5 donation. Scott says, Pete Alonso just doesn't seem to vibe with this team. Had no business being an all-star or in the Derby. It's sad, but he really might have to go. Here's what I'll say in regards to Pete Alonso. Yeah, the home run derby was brutal. I mean, his buddy Dave Joust did him no favors whatsoever. Joust was absolutely horrendous. He was throwing nice up and in on the hands of Alonso when he just needed meatballs right down the plate. Didn't get them enough. Still Alonso with another underwhelming home run derby. It looks like Alonso continues to slightly decline, and that's not a good thing for a guy in a walk year. Clearly the pressure has not benefited him well, and Alonso now in the deepest offensive lineup he's ever been in his career. While statistically you look at the home runs, roughly 20 on the season already, RBI numbers still have him aligned to be again in the 85, 100 plus plateau, but those are rookie numbers for Pete Alonso that is otherwise very much a 45, 50 plus home run hitter that can find himself in the 100, 120, 130 RBI plateau range, especially with this offense, is beyond feasible to happen. However, for Pete Alonso, he has unfortunately been one of these glaring holes where everyone else has been in a groove and in a rhythm, but more often than not, Pete comes up to the plate and he's popping out to first base to end set inning with runners on. Like, it's inexcusable. well, and I love Alonso to death, and I truly hope he stays a Met the rest of his career. However, he is not doing himself nearly enough favors this season by not showing the clutch factor that we would certainly like with our big-time slugger that's looking for a big-time payday this offseason. And having said that, now let's transition into everything that needs to be said on this game, break it down, let's get into it. Before I do that, everybody, thank you all so much for being here as you continue to smash that like and subscribe button. Appreciate the kind words to Tony Baloney in the chat. Thank you. The Mets are not going to do a complete sell-off the way you think, Tony, unless they completely free fall from now until July 30th. The Mets are going to be buying, and they are going to be showing a level of faith and interest in buying in to their current roster to continue to push and be in a playoff spot, hopefully for the remainder of the season. Again, the Mets might be out of the wild card in just the next couple days. Doesn't change the fact that they will likely be in the hunt for a good period of time. But now let's get into key updates here on the Mets prospect front, along with Mets health updates in general, because these things certainly impact the Mets, their future this season. And it starts with Starling Marte. Starling Marte, after looking like, he's really slow rolling with his injury, thankfully has finally started to pick up some baseball activities. Again, it's a bit of a slow roll for Marte, said Carlos Mendoza earlier today. However, he is now hitting off a tee, playing catch, and getting active on a daily basis. Once this ramp up goes from slow to high, fast, then it will not be long before he's back with the Mets, because Mendoza did emphasize it shouldn't be a long turnaround. It should be a quick rehab once Marte is done feeling pain. That's basically been the only issue. As long as he's feeling pain with that knee, that's something that they have been trying to be very cautious with and wary of, rightfully so. But in the interim, Starling Marte, a positive health update finally since he first went down with injury, finally moving those legs, finally moving that body a bit, and starting to utilize those baseball activities to get back with the Mets sooner rather than later, because depending on how soon you get Marte back, that absolutely goes in hand with exactly what your philosophy is leading up to the trade deadline, should you look to acquire at least one bat that can command corner outfield. And we're going to be talking about that more at great length in the coming days on the channel. Be on the lookout next week. I have a video that I'm very excited to get into on potential guys that could land in Queens that make sense for multiple reasons, however, make a lot more sense if Starling Marte is still on the shelf for, not 100% for a good stretch of time. Outside of Starling Marte, we have a massive update. The most exciting update, in my humble opinion, that we're going to break down right now was Alonso's WAR right now. Scott, I don't have it pulled up in front of me. That's a good question, though. I can actually pull that up here in a second. And while I pull up Pete Alonso's WAR this season, let me tell you guys, yeah, Kodai Senga time. It looks like it's going to happen sooner than later, folks. Senga has his final rehab start tomorrow with AAA Syracuse, where Senga is going to pitch approximately 80 to 85 pitches. Afterwards, as long as there's no setbacks and there's nothing to be concerned with Senga's outing in AAA tomorrow, Senga will finally make his long-awaited, highly anticipated Metropolitan return for his season debut this season, later on over the next week, probably next weekend, against the Atlanta Braves. So whether that's the Friday or the Saturday game, expect one of those games in which Kodai Senga will be starting against Atlanta. And speaking of Atlanta, I do have an exciting update to share with all of you that isn't Kodai Senga related, but is Wardy related. Your boy Wardy, I told you guys we're going to be heading to ballpark again soon. I promised you we're going to be hitting it at least once before the end of the month of July. Then everything's going to be shut down for me because I got to lock in with the trade deadline coming up, and we're going to be covering everything to a T on the channel throughout that span. And then in August, I plan to hit the Citi Field multiple times. But guys, Thursday, the series opener between the Braves and the Metsies, your boy Wardy is going to be there. I think also my boy Pat, co-host of Bridging the Gap podcast, will be joining me. We will be doing a series preview of the Yankees versus Mets Subway series prior, and we will do at least one post game together more than likely. We also have a trade deadline preview and prediction coming out for both the Mets and the Yankees throughout that week. And for the Atlanta Braves series, we will have coverage every single day, including a live show, initially live from my phone, and then potentially a secondary show, depending on the game's outcome, very late at night, that I will either pre-record or record live on my computer once I'm back all the way from Queens, heading back home to Pennsylvania. So Thursday next week, series opener against the Atlanta Braves. Look out for your boy Wardy. Let's try to do a pregame meetup. I'm thinking maybe the Marino lot. Let's do that, guys. A lot overdue that we've been doing a nice little meetup so far this season with the boys rolling. Let's make it happen. I would love to see you Mets fans out there. And Alonso is at a 1.1 WAR. Wardy, I can email you. Yes, I have all my emailed stuff in the description of the live show, Chiefs. And thank you so much for asking. Appreciate that. But final updates I have for you all, then we'll get on to the ball game. Jose Quintana unfortunately dealt with a fever today. Quintana, who was initially slotted to pitch in this 3-game series against the Miami Marlins, no longer the case. Quintana will be pushed. He's expected to start and should be good to go to pitch one of the games against the Yankees. And because of this, David Pearson will now be slotted to face the Marlins, which I'm honestly a little bummed by because Pearson was looking great leading into the All-Star break. And he's had success against the Yankees in the past. I would have liked to see him match up in that Subway Series matchup. And speaking of Subway Series, final little note there, the Mets 2025 schedule did officially come out today, and some key notes on this. The Mets are finally not playing the Phillies or the Braves for the final week of the season in the 2025. That's felt like it's been the case every week since I started covering the team. And two, most importantly, the Subway Series is back to being 3 games, and they'll both be weekend series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. One will be in May, and the second series will be 4th of July weekend. Perfect timing, going to be absolutely electric. Hope to see you all there next year with what is hopefully going to be an amazing 2025 season. But Quintana, that's the latest on the health update, and Shintaro Fujinami pitched a Squirrels outing today and relief for AAA Syracuse as he continues his rehab. Fujinami, who touched 99 on the gun yet again today, is absolutely a flamethrowing arm that David Stearns will call up sooner rather than later. And yes, Drew Gilbert continues his rehab in the minor leagues, went 1 for 3 today with an RBI as he continues to ramp up off of that hamstring injury that had him on the shelf for basically the entire season in Syracuse to this point over the past week or so. But all right, guys, we broke down all the key updates. Now let's get into everything that you need to know about this ball game inning by inning, shall we? And again, thank you all so much for being here. Smash that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you so much. Which Thursday game? It'll be Thursday, the series opener between the Mets and the Braves. That's July 20-something, I believe. But yes, it'll be, what day is today? Friday. So next Thursday. So yeah, it's coming up. Less than a week away. All right, everybody. Again, we had Sean Manaea on the bump tonight against Edward Cabrera, who has definitely had some up and down performance with the Mets in the past. Has been a wild thing with the walk rate early in his career, too. Let's see how he matched up against the Metsies today. And look, he did what he needed to do. The Mets match up early, and looking for offense early and often in said matchup. Unfortunately, they couldn't convert, though, because Francisco Lindor gets on base with the walk. Then we see Lindor steal his 19th stolen bag of the year. Lindor is absolutely going to get 30-plus stolen bags this year. No doubt in my mind. However, after a Brandon Nimmo ground out, JD Martinez gets on with a walk, but Pete Alonso grounds into it, inning double play, and that was an absolute killer. Cue the theme of Pete Alonso being a rally killer, because that was unfortunately not only a theme, but a common trend we saw in today's ball game. Then we see in the bottom of the first, we see a quick inning of work for Sean Manaea, 1, 2, 3, including a strikeout, which we definitely love to see. Mark Vientos gets the hitting going early. He rips his first single of the day there in the top of the second. However, the Mets would not be able to do anything there. Vientos would go trying to rip a single, and he would try to leg it into a double at the same time, and that is where we have a problem. Vientos is out trying to go first or second, doing his best Harrison Bader impression, and the Mets do nothing there. Then we see in the bottom of the second, Otto Lopez with his 8th double of the year. Jesus Sanchez rips a single, and then Xavier Edwards rips a single to make it 1-0 Miami, unfortunately. Very frustrating as there was a throwing error there by Jeff McNeil, but Jeff had tremendous defense today. That was just an unfortunate sequence overall. Jeff McNeil was the lone bright spot for the Mets in many ways today when you look at this entire outing, losing 6-4. Emmanuel Rivera had himself a sac fly to make it 2-0, and that does it for the inning. We then head to the third, folks. The Mets are down a pair, and Francisco Lindor rips a sharp line drive single to Jesus Sanchez. Then we see Nimmo get on with a single. Surely the Mets can score here. 2 on, 2 out. JD Martinez lines out to Xavier Edwards to end said inning, unfortunately. Very pissed off at that point because now the Mets have already wasted multiple key opportunities in this ball game to make stuff happen. They just could not convert there, and that would be a continued trend that we see throughout this one. Jazz Chisholm would get on with a single in the bottom of the third and steal his 19th stolen bag, just like Lindor. Then we see with 1 out, Jake Burger rips his 10th double of the year. Burger with, unfortunately, not, a Mick Homer, for his case, but certainly something that I'm happy didn't happen. We saw Mick bombs, and we saw a Burger double today. Okay, 3-0 Miami, just like that. and it becomes 4-0 Miami as Josh Bell rips a single. So, Sean Manaea, what was Sean's problem today, everybody? Say it with me. Had some hard contact, some unfortunate luck, but just left way too much over the heart of the plate today. Everything that I'm looking at with Sean getting caught today when he gave up the home run that we saw there, for the 5th and final run he gave up and said ball game. It was a fastball up, but way too much heart right down the pipe still. And yes, these guys are going to make you pay. Even the Miami Marlins, believe it or not. Thank you for the donation, AZ. AZ says with the $10 donation, Fortes gave me PTSD of John Birdie, but all the Mets fans who are angry, put the pitchforks away. They need to get back in the swing of things after the break. Calm down. Let's effing go. Appreciate the donation for that, my man. Thank you so much. And yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I tweeted this earlier. Yes, when we look at someone like that being in Birdie, John Birdie, the now Miami replacement as the no-name Miami Marlin that kills the Mets is absolutely Nick Fortes. Nick Fortes had a big hit, a home run off of Ottavino earlier this year. We saw Fortes have a big bomb off of David Peterson like 2 years ago. Maybe it was off of Ottavino then, and it was just when Peterson had a masterclass of an outing. Mets lost like 2-1 that game, I think, in Miami when Peterson pitched great. I was so pissed. No less Nick Fortes as your typical 500 to 600 OPS catcher that still somehow rakes against the Mets, because of course he does. Appreciate the donation though, AZ. And now let's continue to break down this ball game as in the top of the 4th, Francisco Alvarez rips a single. It's 4-0. Mets are down here. Sean Manaea serving up batting practice early. Mets won't score anything more there. Emmanuel Rivera gets on in the bottom of the 4th with a walk. Nick Fortes, speaking of the devil, that is him, rips a single. Thankfully, no one else scores. He gets out of the jam, that being in Sean Manaea. Then we see Jeff McNeil rip a Jeff McBomb to right, his 6th home run of the season, and the Mets are down by 3 runs. Lindor gets on base for the 2nd time today, this time via a walk, and Nimmo gets on with a walk, and the Metsies are trying to convert more offense here, and JD Martinez finally helps make that happen. He doesn't rip himself a home run, which would have been great to tie the ball game, but he does rip a sac fly to make it 4-2 Metropolitans. Pete Alonso then gets on with a walk, and Alvarez sadly flies out to end the inning. Jake Berger with a meatball of a home run up and down the pipe, 11th of the year. Berger with the home run, a double. If your name had something to do with McDoubles, with McBombs, or with just Burgers itself, you're having a great day for both sides. Berger makes it 5-2 Miami. Nothing else transpires in the inning, but that does it for Sean Manaea's final line, everybody. And I want to know your initial reactions to Sean's very lackadaisical outing. This was a less than ideal one for sure. 5 innings of 5 earned run ball, 1 walk, 1 K, 8 hits allowed. On a scale of 1 to 10, everybody, where would you rate Sean Manaea's outing for the Metsies as they kick off their second half of the season? Let me know in the live chat, and also let me know in the comments down below, everybody. And thank you all so much in advance for doing so. Let me just make sure that we're continuing to look good. I'll set up live here on Twitter and YouTube. I believe that we all are. Should be all good there. All set there. Are we good here? I do believe that we are. Yes, we are. Awesome. Thank you guys all so much for that. Going to retweet this too to my roughly 500 concurrent viewers live on Twitter and on YouTube. Thank you to each and every one of you guys. Continue to smash those buttons as we break down the latest in Mets land as they falter tonight by a final score of 6-4. Let's get into everything, every little detail, every little aspect about this team to kick off the second half of the season, shall we? And thank you all so much for the love lately on the recent trade rumor and just trade target content on the channel. That's been doing unbelievably well. Yesterday's video definitely hasn't been picked up by the algorithm yet, so if you guys haven't already, check it out. Top bullpen trade targets video for the Metropolitans. Went over 6 pitchers, six relievers in that previous video. Check it out. And again, thank you guys so much in advance for doing exactly that. Billy Dottie with a $5 haul. Thank you again, Billy. Billy says Mendoza should switch the lineup with Alvarez and Vientos at 3 and 4. JD at 5 and 6. It's a black hole after Lindor and Nimmo. I don't have as much of a gripe about Alvarez Vientos as maybe you can make the argument with JDM and Alonso, but it's like also, oh wait, I get what you're saying now. You want Vientos and JDM just moved up entirely. Vientos and Alvarez and Alonso and JDM moved down. I see what you're saying, but I also don't love the idea of JDM and Alonso, who haven't been completely in a groove, right in the heart of the order at 4 and 5. At 5 and 6 rather. I like them where they are currently. I really like the Mets lineup configuration. They just have not been producing consistently with those big bops of batters that you call JD Martinez and Pete Alonso in particular. But to get back into breaking down this ball game, everybody, the Mets are down 5-2 at this point from where we left off. And as we get into the top of the sixth, Jose Iglesias continues to be an absolute dog as Mr. Oh My God, who had himself a fantastic all-star game performance, performing his own song that he came out, Oh My God. He rips his 8th double of the season. Mets have a runner in scoring position, and Jeff scores said runner, baby. His 7th home run of the year, his 2nd of the night, and for the first time since 2019, Jeff McNeil has a multi-home run ball game. Yes, that's not something that we should expect often, nor should we really encourage, because that means a power swing for a guy who wasn't a power hitter. So no thank you, Jeff. But today, we greatly appreciate the offensive production, and we thank you for that. It is a one-run ball game, 5-4 as we head to the bottom of the 6th. And in the bottom of the 6th, Adam Ottavino replaces Sean Manaea and pitches a 1-2-3 outing, striking out Nick Fortes, the final batter, a huge out against a guy who's had his number, even going back earlier this season, I believe, at Citi Field. Then we see Pete Alonso with a 2-out walk and an Alvarez flyout in the 7th, and that's all she wrote. In the bottom of the 7th, Phil Maton comes in, and he gives up a single to Jazz Chisholm right away. Then he strikes out Brian De La Cruz and Jake Berger, and then flies out Josh Bell for a clean inning of work there after giving up a hit to the leadoff batter and the soon-to-be not Miami Marlin and Jazz Chisholm, as he will be traded along with Tanner Scott, who closed a door against the Mets today, who we would love to see in Queens. What a flame-throwing southpaw he is, right? Oh my goodness. How many of you saw Tanner Scott on the night today just throwing 99, 100 gas and said to yourself, yeah, that can play. That can play in this bullpen. Sign me the hell up, baby. That's what I would like to see. Iglesias gets on for the second time today with a walk in the bottom of the 7th. McNeil, however, rips a single, his 3rd hit of the day. A wild pitch allows runners to get to 2nd and 3rd. All the Mets need is a sacrifice effing fly, and they could not convert. Harrison Bader unfortunately reaches on a fielder's choice. It was an infield liner that is a perfect throw to home to get Iglesias out in time. Lindor pops out softly right as he's facing Tanner Scott, as Scott comes in to face Lindor for the final batter of the inning and to kickstart his 4-out save. Then we see nothing transpire. We do see one more run transpire in the top of the 9th, and that was all. In the bottom of the 8th, I should say. That was because of Nick Fortes ripping an RBI single that just got out of the infield, and that scored. Who was it? Otto Lopez, who initially got on to kick off the inning with a walk. Daniel Nunez gave up that walk, but after he gave up that walk and that run ultimately scored, Nunez hunkered down a little bit. Danny Young then comes in to pitch, however, after Nunez can't get out of his own mess, actually, that we see there. Danny Young comes in and gets Jazz Chisholm to ground out for the final out in the 8th. In the 9th, Brandon Nimmo strikes out, JD Martinez grounds out, and Alonso, as we all saw, popped out there softly at second base to end to second baseman Otto Lopez, rather, to end the ball game. Mets go down 6-4 is your final, everybody. And to get into a little bit more on the pitching end, because I have a decent bit to say here on Sean Manaea. Let's break it down here in 1 second. Give me all 1 second, everybody, before we continue on. My man Isaac, great pitching contributor on the channel too, texted earlier and said, can't really be mad at this loss, fought the whole game and a lot of bad luck. Manaea sucked though. Yep, I think that's kind of the consensus, and that's why I'm not screaming my head off in this one whatsoever. But let's talk about Sean Manaea. Let's see, why was Sean Manaea not working the way you'd hope that Sean Manaea would work today, right? Let's get into exactly that. But before we do talk about Sean Manaea, everybody, let's take a quick word to hear from our amazing sponsor on the channel, a sponsor that you guys and gals know very well, and in case you don't know, you know now, and that is going to be our great friends at So Rare MLB.
It's heating up this July on So Rare MLB, where the thrill of the chase meets the prospect of big rewards. Lock in and go yard, collecting cards and playing your way to the top. Get things right and you'll be calling your shot at a share of over $225K in total cash prizes and more. Join for free. Build your winning roster, watch your players perform, and improve your strategy each week for a shot at being crowned a champion. Sign up and enter now. July is for baseball.
If you guys and gals are a reoccurring viewer here on the channel, then you know very well what So Rare MLB is, the best MLB fantasy game out there. And as you heard it from the source itself, you got to get in on the July Chase right now, in case you haven't, folks, because the July Chase is your best chance to get in on the most amazing deal with the best MLB sports game that we have at the moment. MLB related, fantasy related, you heard it here, folks, because we got $100,000 in cash prizes will in fact be rewarded across all competition levels for the July Chase, including $1,000 to the winner of the free-to-play common competition. This is a big point, that we have, previously been doing. We haven't been previously rewarding in our our cash in our free-to-play contest. So you guys, again, will have your top 3 scores for the rest of the month to count for this contest, and all you have to do to enter is to go to So Rare MLB, draft your teams as you always do. I have a boatload of rosters. I got 4 different tournaments I'm entered in at the moment, as you guys and gals can see here, and this is the current one that I have in with the July Chase at the moment. And the July Chase roster I have loaded with a lot of Baltimore Orioles and some New York Metropolitans. We got Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz for the Metsy representatives. We got Manny Machado that we just won over the past week or so, and So Rare MLB for doing well in our tournaments as our man at the hot corner. Adley Rutschman, Corbin Burns, Gunnar Henderson already gained production from them, which is awesome to see. So we are currently ranked right now 897th out of over 8,000 people. And again, if we continue to climb this leaderboard, we're going to have a great chance to get to the $1,000 plateau. If I'm in first, if you are in second, you're going to get $750. If you're in third, you're going to get $550. And funny enough, the guy who's in first, I'm almost certain I know exactly who this person is, or else they just have an insanely close name to another guy that I know by the name of Kish, who follows here on the WardyNYM platform. If that is in fact the Kish I think it is, that's actually absolutely insane. So congratulations to him if he's right now in first. I don't know if that's him or not, but it seems awfully familiar, awfully close that it is them, and I'm pretty sure Kish has signed up. No less, everybody, get involved with our great friends at So Rare MLB today, and good luck getting in on all the action. But to hop back into this one now, folks, let's talk a bit on, we talked on breaking down the ball game. Now let's get into Sean Manaea. What wasn't working for Sean today? Well, unfortunately, it was multiple things for Sean that we saw. But as we do our pitching breakdown, Sean Manaea's arsenal tonight, everybody, was as follows. So listen up with me. And again, continue to let me know your thoughts on Manaea on a scale of 1 to 10, where you had him and why, and his rating scale as a starter today, as he gave up 5 over 5. Manaea's sinker, 37% of the arsenal, sat around 92. Sweeper, 18% of the arsenal, sat around 78. Slider, 15% of the arsenal, sat around 85.5. Changeup, 14% of the arsenal, sat around 85. Four-seam fastball, 12% of the arsenal, sat around 93. And the cutter, 4% of the arsenal, sat around 87 to 88 today. We saw the velo was down across the board with all of Manaea's pitches today. Nothing was overly down, but we did see the sinker, the four-seam, the cutter was down by basically a mile per hour today. And when we look at the swing and miss, the Sean Manaea is not an overwhelming swing and miss pitcher. We are aware of that. He throws that high sinker, but he still induces both ground and fly ball outs in doing so. But in the case today, we saw a 19% whiff rate on the sinker, 29% on the sweeper, 33% on the slider. The changeup was 25%. Nothing on the four-seam, though. He was barreled decent amount today when he threw that pitch. The cutter, he did not give up any whiffs on either. And yeah, this was just unfortunately just not a great day if you're Sean Manaea, who did not have luck on his side, one, but also gave up some hard contact. And this is just one of those kind of outings from Sean Manaea you're going to find yourself having, regardless of who you're facing. It doesn't matter if it's the Miami Marlins or the New York Yankees. Sean Manaea can go out there and give you 5-6 strong innings anytime, every 4th, 5th, 6th day, but he can also give you clunkers like this when he doesn't necessarily have his command working. And in the cases today, the frustrating aspect was he wasn't walking everyone their mother. However, he did give up way too much over the heart of the plate today. So Sean Manaea going 5 over 5. I am going to personally give him a starter rating today of 3 out of 10. It's hard to give him much higher than that, obviously. This was a rough start from him. Not the worst one imaginable, but a start where you jump your ear right now, 3.2 or so, to now 3.7. Not ideal for Manaea if you're trying to consider trading him. I think that this is a perfect little segue into talking briefly, at least everybody, about the trade deadline and what the Mets may or may not do. Now, as we know, the common consensus among many Mets beat writers and what's been thrown out there as of late, that I've talked to people internally who are connected within the organization, have all relayed the following sentiment. The Mets do intend to trade at least one of their starters. It's just a matter of who and to what degree. When is it going to happen, with Kodai Senga returning as soon as this upcoming next week against the Atlanta Braves in Queens against the Metsies, which I cannot wait to see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, happen. Ghost Fork, baby. We want to see Kodai back leading the charge in this rotation. But even with a 6-man rotation, the Mets have an abundance of riches with starting pitching options. Now, do they have an abundance of riches with quality of said starting pitching? No, but they do have an abundance of guys that can churn out outings for them. Whether it's even Jose Buto, who's been looking awesome as a multi-inning reliever out of the bullpen. Adrian Hauser, why is he still in the bullpen? Great question. I find myself asking the same exact thing, but he's a guy the Mets can consider parting with if someone wants to take a flyer on trying to stretch him, into more than what he currently is in the Mets organization. But when you have Tyler McGill sitting AAA, Joey Lucchesi cleared, by the way, after being DFA'd, so he's still in the organization, I'm pretty sure, so he's available for you. Then you have, obviously, everything going on at the MLB level with David Pearson, Jose Quintana, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, Christian Scott, that's your 5, adding Kodai Senga, that's your 6. And if the Mets go and buy a starter, i.e. Eric Fetty, i.e. a Garrett Crochet, if you're shooting for the stars like I am, wishful thinking, but not expecting, rather, that we've spoken of in previous trade-related content, then you understand that the value of starting pitching is so expensive this deadline. So, if you have a guy that you can sell high on while knowing that if you part with him, you're not really changing your outlook for the second half of the season, even if you entail an injury or two to your rotation, that makes all the sense in the world to trade one of those starters. And I'm going to also be quite frank by saying I'm not overly stubborn as to which starters traded because I know it goes in hand with the value and the return they get. The Mets trade a short-term starter option for, say, more immediate relief help. No one's going to be complaining there, especially if we do a trade potentially win-win with a borderline contender in a wild card spot per se, either from the AL or whoever that, or maybe in desperate need of a fifth starter. Enter Jose Quintana, for example, and then return we get a solid relief option or two that we otherwise didn't have that maybe has control in their contracts. Those are things that David Stearns and the Mets absolutely not only have, but are actively considering. So, in the case of Sean Manaea, an outing like this, giving up 5 over 5 is something to make a note of because you have to wonder, how does this impact or really dictate at all David Stearns and the Mets front office philosophy, and what do they want to do with trading away at least a starter by the deadline for the best value there? Who makes the most sense? Who doesn't hurt the clubhouse? Because JD Martinez famously said in our article earlier today, I'm trying to think who he said that with, I'm blanking at the moment, but I do know JDM emphasized how important it is to not mess up a clubhouse by the deadline, especially if you're buying and selling where you're still having aspirations to push to be in a playoff spot. However, you are selling some guys on the roster because you know you can really be fine without them for the remainder of the year and then some. So I thought that was a great read by JDM with JDM. Check it out, everybody. But it's a further point of emphasis as to how trading certain in-house guys, even if they don't have the best production, they really do have an impact in the clubhouse, and it could have a negative impact on said players and the guys around them, those fellow teammates, if a team favorite rather, is dealt just for the sake of being dealt for maybe a lazy return, if you will. But that's what I have to say there on the trade front for now, everybody. My question to each and every one of you that's watching this live, that's watching this on replay, in the comments down below, the same applies. Out of the following starters for the Mets, of Tyler McGill, David Pearson, Jose Quintana, Sean Manaea, and Luis Severino, which starter or starters would you think makes the most sense to be traded and why? Let us know in the live chat in the comments down below, everybody. This is a discussion that we will be having plenty, and one that we will be having in further depth on the channel over the next week as we continue our trade-related content. I have a bunch of bulleted point topics to share with you all. We already hit the nail on the head with 2 or 3 throughout the All-Star break, but we got more coming, so be on the lookout in case you haven't already. The same way that I know over 16,000 of you have already checked out everything that there is to know about Mets' newly acquired southpaw reliever from the Giants and Alex Young. Check that video out as well in case you guys and gals have not yet done so. Wardy Wiseman is apparently afraid to move Pete down the lab. It's not an afraid aspect to move Pete in the lab. Pete has always been a 4-hole hitter, pretty much 4, 5, right in that range. He's batted higher in the lab this year, and it didn't have the success we were hoping it would. 4 is where he's had most success, and it just isn't working. I don't know how much of it is a lineup aspect as it is just Alonso being mentally insecure a little bit, and a little bit in his head, to say the least, that we know. And the reason why I say this is because this is a Mets team under Alonso. Look at where he's in the lineup. Look at the protection in front of him. Look at the protection behind him. Yes, there is an argument to be said that, okay, he would have even more protection if, say, if Alvarez or Vientos was ahead of him, but then one of the two was behind him, okay. But still, though, when you have a lineup consisting of Lindor, Nimmo, Martinez, Alonso, Vientos, Alvarez, or the other way around, I mean, that's a great 1 through 5, 1 through 6 to kick off your lineup, right? And Alonso's running the thick of things, and he has protection all around him. So it's becoming more and more inexcusable to defend Alonso when he is not stepping up the way that basically everyone else around him in said lineup is doing. Not so much today because the Mets didn't have a crazy amount of offensive production, as we now pivot into the offensive end before we get into a bit on the prospect end, and then we're going to wrap up the show, everybody. What we did notice on the offensive end for the Mets today, again, was not a lot, was not overly impressive. The Mets were out-hit by the Marlins today, 10-8. They did have an expected batting average of .299, so some bad luck for sure, but the Marlins were just a smidge better with a .311 expected batting average. And for the Metsies today, Lindor 1 for 3 with a run scored, a pair of walks, a .254 average, a .786 OPS on the season. And now I do want to pull up a stat which I thought was pretty damn cool, at least from earlier. Let's see if my boy James Shiano still has it. Shout out to you, James, the beauty that you are. Great Mets fan in the space. Lindor just became the second Met ever to walk twice in 4 straight games. David Wright was the first. So Lindor, fun little fact about him with these pair of walks for a 4 straight game. Lindor's full season OPS was up to 780, but dropped to 786 by the conclusion of the game. Pretty cool stuff there that Lindor is the first guy since David Wright to be walked just twice, but for 4 consecutive games in a row. Hasn't happened since our captain was here in Queens at the hot corner. Brandon Nimmo 1 for 4 with a walk and a pair of strikeouts, a .248 average and an .813 OPS. What killed me most about Nimmo was the strikeout that we saw there to Tanner Scott. It was 98, 99 right down the pipe, and he had nothing to show for it. JD Martinez was completely behind too, and when he got a freaking 100 heat down and in, I was like, holy shit. Yeah, Tanner Scott is going to cost you an arm and a leg for a rental reliever because of how good of a year he's having, even with that high walk rate. But holy shit, is that man a flamethrower. You want to talk about an immediate asset, a true setup man for Edwin Diaz, a flamethrowing southpaw to get lefties and righties out. Look no further than Tanner Scott, who could essentially be when the Phillies have gotten the best out of a Gregory Soto, or even a Jose Alvarado, just flamethrowing southpaws that just have great swing and miss. Yes, their walk rates fluctuate like a mofo because that goes in hand with the lack of command. But still, I would love to see Tanner Scott if that is at all possible. But to get into it a little bit more, everybody, on the offensive end, JD Martinez, .260 average, .797 OPS, not even an .800 OPS now after going 0 for 3 with an RBI sac fly. Alonso 0 for 3 with a pair of walks. No strikeouts today for Pete, but is now down to .238 on the average and a .770 OPS on the season. Francisco Alvarez 1 for 4. We see .295 average, .835 OPS. Mark Vientos 1 for 4, .290 average, .888 OPS. Jose Iglesias 1 for 3 with a double and a walk and a 378 average and over 1,000 OPS on the season for my second baseman. Speaking of second base, let's talk about the guy that's played there a lot, now commanding right field with Marte out. McHits with 3 big hits today, 2 of them being McBombs, 3 for 4, a couple home runs, 3 RBIs, average up to .223 and a .622 OPS. Yes, the bar is that low. Harrison Mader 0 for 4 today. Tough day at the plate for Harrison. .269 average, .722 OPS on the year. Now, everybody, let's pivot back into this, talk a little bit more on the key takeaways from said matchup. I do want to answer if you guys have a specific comment or two you'd like to ask away. By all means, do that. Let's see. Had the best lineup in baseball for 6 weeks now. Yeah, this Mets lineup has been awesome. We know that for sure. As a whole, this Mets lineup has been awesome. As we talk about FanGraphs, you guys mentioned WAR earlier. Alonso with a 1.1 WAR this year. Mind you, Alonso was a 2.9 WAR player this year, last year. And in 2022, which was his best season in my humble opinion, and I'll stand by that, a 3.8 WAR. Yes, he had a 4.7 in his rookie year, and yes, he did all the crazy accolades in his rookie year, but this was without juice baseballs, and I think that carries a little bit of weight. Alonso was just such a balanced and truly pure hitter in ways that I just felt like I hadn't seen to the magnitude that we saw in 2022 since 2022 now. Haven't seen it to the same degree in 2023 nor in 2024 at all. And definitely happy to see the average a little bit better with Pete, but want to see the consistency be there and the on-base ability, because those are two things that have wavered a decent amount, unfortunately. Let's see. Pete doesn't deserve 200 million plus. I know a lot of fans feel that way. Yep. Why didn't the genius manager take out McNeil? He was struggling. He takes guts out when he's not supposed to. Leaves pitchers when they are off. Marlins stink. We give up 6 runs. Unacceptable. Yeah, I mean, a loss to Miami is always unacceptable. Always. No denying that. No denying that whatsoever. But I did want to get back into my initial point, which was on team batting right now. If we look at the batting leaders in Major League Baseball at the moment, let's pivot real quick. If this thing will load for me in time. If it doesn't load for me, that's fine. Then I might just say, no, we won't do it. Okay, so batting-wise, offensively, the New York Metropolitans have the 8th ranked offense in all Major League Baseball per FanGraphs and per F4. If we look at the Mets offense, since let's go to May 30th. We'll go to May 30th. Since May 30th, Mets offense has been first in Major League Baseball with a 12 WAR. Minnesota's second at 11.7. And at WRC Plus, Mets are also first at 138. Minnesota comes in second, 6% lower at 132. Yes, Mets offense has quite literally been the best in Major League Baseball all around for, a month and 2 weeks, month and 3 weeks now. It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. You know, even on an off night for the Mets offense, they still score 4 runs, which is not something that we could get at all, felt like a year ago, many times. Find yourself someone who loves you as much as Mendoza loves a slumping player. That's funny, Priest. That is. But, all right, guys, let's talk a bit on the prospect end, because I did want to wrap up today's discussion by getting into what were the key takeaways on the prospect end for the Metsies. What was happening in Syracuse? What was happening in Binghamton? And what was happening with the Brooklyn Cyclones? And what was happening also that we saw there with the Port St. Lucie Mets? Let's get into everything here, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button in case you haven't already for all your Metropolitans needs covered here at WardyNYM. Tyler McGill, big drip with a big outing after a rough last outing there for the Syracuse Mets. Bounces back big time today. The Syracuse Mets go guns a-blazing and destroy the Red Wings by a final score of 13-2. Luis Angel Acuna got in big on the offense today, 2 for 4 with 3 runs scored and an RBI. A 262 averages, 670 OPS for Luis Angel. We saw Thomas with a 3-hit day in commanding center field there for the Metsies. Not a guy that's overly notable in the prospect end or anything like that. Speaking of prospects, Rylan Bannon, who was a veteran infield option that the Mets have been utilizing well in Syracuse this year, who had a great spring training, was awesome in spring at the hot corner as well. Bannon was traded a couple of days ago to the Minnesota Twins for cash or a player to be named later. So I did want to throw that out there because I forgot about it for a hot minute. Brett Beatty in a 13-run game in AAA Syracuse had himself 3 walks and 0 hits. 262 average, 877 OPS. We see Luke Ritter with a big day in left field. 3 for 4 with 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs, 261 average, 855 OPS. Carlos Cortez with his 9th home run of the season. 3 RBIs, 266 average, 850 OPS. Brosseau, 2 for 5 with a run scored, 284 average, 827 OPS. Veteran infield option who has plenty of MLB experience during his time with the Brewers and David Stearns. And that's it there on the offensive end. Tyler McGill went 5 innings of 0 earned run ball, 1 run allowed, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts. So the continued struggles for McGill and commanding the strike zone continue sadly. Mike Vassell with a great day, 3 innings of 1 earned run ball, 0 walks, 1 strikeout, and then Shintaro Fujinami 1 inning pitch, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout as he continues to work back in his rehab, in which he's looked great throughout the entire rehab process. Very happy there with what we have seen from Shintaro Fujinami. But now let's get into what happened with the Rumble Ponies today, because my favorite prospect with the Rumble Ponies and Mr. Ryan Clifford had himself yet again another big day, which is what we love to see. Can you also check the Florida Complex League minor league games for the Mets also? Yes, I can double check for you for sure. Let's see here. Okay, Kevin Prado went over today. Ryan Clifford hit an absolute bomb. Ryan Clifford, I screenshot this earlier because I want to make sure I didn't forget it. Just to tell you how good Ryan Clifford has been on a tear for the Metsies that we've seen in the minor leagues. This is a good example of just how good he's been. Clifford coming into today in 34 games since June 2nd was hitting 281 with a 425 on base percentage and a 658 OPS or 658 slugging for over 1,000 OPS. And, you know, he has hit 12 home runs throughout that span. And today he hit his 13th, which is absolutely insane. Ryan Clifford, 13 home runs on the season in the minor leagues, 240 average, 937 OPS, elite power that's going to play so well at the major league level. Consuerga, 3 for 3 today, and that's really it there on the anything you guys really need to make a note of. So now let's pivot into the Port St. Lucie Mets, and then we will do the Cyclones to wrap up everything. If you were going to give up prospects, go get Miller, not Crochet. Mason Miller is awesome, but I'd much rather give up an arm and a leg for Garrett Crochet over Mason Miller every day of the week. Mason Miller is an electric arm that you can stretch into a starter, yes, but Garrett Crochet is just absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I think he would do wonders for this Mets team, I do. And Mason Miller, while yes, he'd help on the bullpen end for sure, Crochet can just help you so much in the long run as a guy that's already being stretched out as an elite starter, where Miller's going to have to really ramp up in that regard as a guy that's now going from a starter to reliever that would be stretched back into a starter again, should that be the case. Colin Houck won 1 for 4 with a walk today. Mets, one of the top Mets prospects there. Drew Gilbert won 1 for 3 that we saw with Port St. Lucie Mets, including an RBI. Awesome stuff there. And that's all she wrote. Now, to wrap it up, let's check the Cyclones out and see what my man Nick Morabito and everyone else there did for Brooklyn. And then we're going to call it a night, everybody. And thank you all so much for everyone that's taking the time to hit that like, that subscribe button. Thank you all so much for chiming into the content here in Metsland as the Metsies go on to falter tonight, sadly, by a final score of, yes, 6-4. And to wrap this up, Nick Morabito, nice day at the plate, 2 for 4 with a run scored and a walk. Nothing else really notable there that we see on the pitching end. Jonathan with a less than ideal day. Jonathan like human today, sadly, with 3.2 innings for the very exciting flame-throwing young right-hander in the Mets organization, who already went from Port St. Lucie to the Cyclones this year, coming off a big start where he had 11 Ks or so. Not the case today for Ton. 3.2 innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 earned runs allowed, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, a 3.14 ERA on the season there for Ton. Unfortunate outing for Ton today, but I do like that the walk rate was down. Yes, he didn't go past 3.2 innings, so something to build off of for sure. But Ton has been having an electric season all around. I'm excited to see him back out there on the bump for the Brooklyn Cyclones. But everybody, that is going to do it for the live show. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Like I said, we will be back live tomorrow, and we will talk about Tommy Pham in the future on the channel. Absolutely. There's a lot of misconceptions on Tommy Pham as well that the media might make you believe one thing when in reality it's another thing. And we'll talk more about that in the future. But everybody, that's going to do it for the live show. Thank you all so much for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. And stay tuned for more coverage as we're going to cover the Mets tomorrow, Sunday, and all throughout the next week. Everything leading up to the trade deadline as we always do here on WardyNYM. Have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And this is